What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another pre-match stream. It's Tottenham against Manchester City, where we're looking to go 3-3 against Manchester City this season. We already did it to one Manchester club, so why not do it to another? We've got an action-packed stream for you guys today. We're going to start off with a Tottenham update, starting off with the injury news going into the game this weekend, and positive news about Solanke, Van de Ven and Cuti Romero, as Ange has confirmed that they should be returning in the next 7 to 10 days. Yeah, which is really good. He did kind of imply that maybe one or two of them will be more ready for the Bournemouth game than the RZ game. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how that happens. But they did release some footage today, Spurs, of Cuti Romero on the grass with the rest of the team. So he looks to be kind of ahead of the other guys at the moment. Just in time for the Argentina games. Well, let's hope he can get some action for Spurs beforehand. It's like a little pre-season for him just before the international break. But it's good to have them back within the team. Obviously, we've seen pictures of Romero training beforehand. It was weird that we saw him the back end of January back with the team, and then we didn't really see him again in training. And now we see him back on the grass. So let's hope he can stay on the grass and he can be part of the team soon. But doesn't look like he'll be ready for tomorrow ahead of a big game against Man City. But these players, they're such important players for Tottenham and how we operate. And when they come back, I think it's going to massively give us a boost, I think, as well. Yeah, I mean, I hope some of them can be in the squad for the RZ game. But they'll definitely be there for the second leg, that's for sure. I think that's the plan. But other players still not available. Davis looks like he's missing out again, which isn't great news considering we could use him. Yeah, I mean, with Davis, last week he said he's not in the squad because he's managing his minutes. This week he said that he hasn't reoccurred an injury, but he does have a little niggle. He said he's been playing with a niggle, he said, for the past few weeks, and he doesn't want to risk it anymore. That's what he claims. Yeah, don't really buy it. But anyway... And he also said Timo Werner's back in the squad. Timo Werner, who did score against Man City earlier in the cup game, didn't he? Yeah. Nice goal. But he said he actually said he was available for the Ipswich game, but because we were lacking defenders, he went with Reguilon on the bench ahead of him. So with Davis still out, I mean, I probably assume that'll be the same. Yeah, you'd assume so. Yeah, because we don't really have any other defenders at the moment. Yeah, so I mean, little options, but it'll be interesting to see what he does with Kevin Danso once Romero and Van de Ven are back. Well, look, he did say last week that he's only playing him on the left-hand side because he needs to get used to that role, which assumes that maybe Van de Ven is still maybe a while away from making consistent games for us. But once these two guys are fit with the form of Danso, I mean, it's hard to ignore Danso when he's in this kind of form. He's playing very well. Obviously, he's got to keep it up. But when the fact that he's come into the side, experienced defender, I think I think we're seeing maybe a bit of a better Archie Gray with him there as well. I think he's really benefited the team, and I think he's a really good profile fit. And Ange will have some difficult decisions if Danso keeps playing this way when Romero and Van de Ven come back for the bigger games. But we know that Van de Ven and Romero are going to probably have to be rotated, especially when they first come back. So Danso is going to get plenty of game time. When it comes to Van de Ven, it's quite interesting. I was reading an article on The Athletic the other day about Spurs really trying to adjust Van de Ven's running style so that he can kind of keep up his speed that he has while also trying to get less strain on his body. And apparently that was something they were talking to a coach of his that was at his coach at the Dutch club he was at. I can't remember the name, Volt something, and Volendam. That's it. And they were saying that was something that they picked up on when he was younger, that yes, he's an unbelievable sprinter and he has unbelievable speed, but sometimes his running style maybe isn't quite right and he puts too much strain on his hamstrings when he does run because of how he plants his feet and all these different running positions. So they had to spend a lot of time with him to kind of adjust that. And they said, like, I think the guy they were talking to was like a professional, like Olympic trainer or something. And they said when you implement a new running style on a player to do that, it can take weeks to get that player fully integrated with it, because it's one thing doing it, but it has to get to a point where it's second nature to the player, because they've obviously got other things to think about, tracking runners, all these different things on the ball, right? Tactics and these things. So they don't they can't afford to, when they're in the game, spend time thinking about their running style. That has to be basically second nature to them, and that can take, he said, like up to 4 or 5 weeks to do. So he thinks that's maybe what they're trying to do with Van de Ven at the moment, to just get him right in terms of that running style, so that when he comes back, that running style is second nature and he's not putting too much pressure on his hamstrings.
You would think even 4 or 5 weeks. It should take. I mean, obviously, I'm not a professional athlete or anything like this, but 4 or 5 weeks seems like a small amount of time for that, because when something's been ingrained in you and you're so natural at doing something your whole life, sure, I mean, especially something like running.
I think that's probably what we saw with Van de Ven. He came back, right, from injury against Elfsborg, and then he said he didn't feel right. So maybe they were thinking, okay, that he hasn't, maybe that running style hasn't quite settled in yet. We want to give him a few more weeks to get him right. So when he says he hasn't re-injured himself, maybe that's what they're talking about.
Maybe.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, I mean, they went and saw a specialist after that. So I do think that there was some sort of niggle or some sort of re-injury.
That's probably a specialist for the running style.
You think it's a specialist for the running style?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because of the hamstring?
Yeah, running style to sort the hamstring out, that's what I'm saying.
Think so?
That makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, but I mean, we know that, I mean, I think that the club are kind of covering up some sort of injuries at the moment, and I believe that Van de Ven did, tweak something after that game, and that's why we haven't seen him. But who knows? We don't know, and we don't know what goes on between those 4 walls. But let's see. Let's just hope he can come back pretty soon. But next up, we're going to talk about Rodrigo Bentancur. Sammy Mockbell says that Tottenham have open talks with Bentancur over a new contract. Discussions are at a very, very early stage, but the willingness from Spurs to extend, there is a willingness from Spurs to extend the midfielder's contract. In the summer, he will be going into the last year of his contract. This one does make sense. I do think one of the midfielders of Bentancur, Basuma, will probably have to make way for another midfielder to come in through the doors this summer, and I assume it will be Basuma over Bentancur. You look at Basuma and the minutes that he's getting at the moment, he's more or less on the bench most games. I think Ange has lost a bit of trust in him. So Bentancur has obviously been the more favoured of the two, and whether you think Bentancur has a long-term future here or not, I think it still makes sense to kind of extend his contract without a view of him losing him on a fairly cheap deal this summer or on a free in the year after that.
If you're planning to keep him, then you do have to offer him a new deal. If you're not, then you could sell him in the summer. I know a lot of fans are happy to see the back of both these players, to be honest. I've seen a lot on social media saying we should sell both, but I kind of feel Bentancur still gets a bit of a rough ride, and I know definitely this season he's had some bad performances and he's had some good performances, and it's frustrating to see that inconsistency. But you've also got to just realise what he's been through over the past couple years. Some of it's self-inflicted, like the comments he made earlier in the season. So he only has himself to blame when that kind of stuff happens. But when you think about the ACL, you think about the first came back from his ACL. He gets another 2-month injury he picked up. He then had 2 concussions this season. It's been so stop-start for him. He's just barely been able to get on the pitch consistently, and I think we need to just be a bit more patient with him. I think I think lately we've seen flashes of him getting back to his best, but still physically I think he's not quite at the level he was pre his injury, where I don't remember him getting kind of overrun as often as he currently is, and I think he's still not quite at peak fitness at the moment where he can cover as much ground as he used to. And I think that's when fans are judging him, I think they kind of assume, rightly or wrongly, and maybe, look, we can only judge what we see as fans. We don't know what's going behind closed doors, but we maybe kind of assume that's kind of the best it's going to get, and we don't think, it can get better and it can change. And maybe the club believe that with what they're seeing and some of the information they have, but obviously we don't know that what's going on behind the scenes. But what I do know is Bentancur, when he was at his best, especially under Conte, he was a phenomenal midfielder, and when he was going through that period when he was at the World Cup and around that time, he was one of the most consistent midfielders in the league at that time, and there was no thought about we would want to sell him. Now the question is he a 6? Is he a 6 in this system? I think that's the biggest kind of doubt a lot of fans have over Bentancur, because if he's not a 6, is he really an 8 in this system? And when we have the likes of Bergvall, we have the likes of Sarr, obviously Decky and Maddison playing those roles as well. So is there a role for Bentancur on the 8? There's not 100% sure about that. Is he a 6 in this system? I think there are valid questions whether he is. I think the biggest problem with Bentancur in being a 6 in this system for me is just the amount of ground he can currently cover, because it just seems as though he gets caught out too often, and sometimes he gets dragged out wide as well, and he leaves holes in the middle. So that needs to be sorted. But in terms of his attributes on the ball, and I think his discipline, I think his how clever he is, I think he can be, but I think he needs to improve a lot to get to that level. But I think a lot of fans assume he can't do it, but with the amount of football he's kind of missed and the inconsistency he's had on the pitch, if he can just get a consistent run of games, I think we've got to give him that opportunity to prove he can do it. And I think that's why maybe they're offering him a new contract.
Yeah, I mean, he is on a consistent run of games at the moment. I think, there are some good games, there's some bad games. He's pretty inconsistent, Bentancur, which is expected with, the problems that he has had. The reality is, since joining the club, since that 6-month period under the first season of Conte, we've never really been able to get him on the pitch consistently enough. In that season, he played 17 games, right, which was like a stretch from January when we signed him till the end of the season, pretty free run.
But the next season until Feb, before we got that ACL, was very consistent.
Yeah, but it's like injuries have been, plaguing his time here. That's the reality. 18 games a season after, 23 games a season after, 16 games this season. So, I mean, he hasn't had over, 25 games in the season for us.
Well, again, I don't think it's because he's an injury-prone player, though. I think it's more to do with he picked up an ACL and then he picked up a bad challenge off Cash, like on his first game. Before that ACL, I don't think he missed barely any games due to injury. He was actually pretty fit, and then he's picked up a few concussions, and then he also picked up an injury from Matt Cash. Other than that, he's not like picking up hamstring muscle injuries. He's not like an injury-prone player. It's just more luck, I think, more than anything. Situation.
Yeah, that is true, but also he hasn't been. You got to say he hasn't been the same player since coming back from that big injury.
I think we've seen signs of it, but yeah, he hasn't hit the form that he was before. That's true, and I think that's more to do with just how many circumstances have gone against him. Again, there's no reason. Obviously, as fans, I guess the fact we haven't seen the best of him, I guess that's the evidence there would point to suggest he never will. But what the club, or maybe they see him behind closed doors and they see him on the training pitch, maybe they think we see enough from him to suggest that he can hit that form and just needs a bit more time, and maybe that's why they're offering him a contract. Yeah,
I mean, I hope so. I really want. I'm backing. I want him to get back to those levels, because I think he's a top midfielder when he's playing at the top of his game. I just have my questions about it, and I do think that we need another midfielder to come in alongside him. Like, if we have a really good 6 to come in this summer to fight for that place with Bentancur, then I'll be very happy with that situation. Give Bentancur one more season to prove himself, and then potentially, if he doesn't, then you've got to get rid of him at the end of next season. But I'm willing to give Bentancur maybe one more season. I think that's probably just right, because of it can take you a long time to recover from an ACL to get back to your full fitness, doesn't it?
But the problem for him is it's not just recovering from the ACL. It's since coming from the ACL, it's just been extremely stop-start. He hasn't even had a run of games to get back into that rhythm consistently. So you remember that first game back, he looked brilliant, didn't he? And then he picked up another injury, and that was probably a major setback, that injury. So that probably kept him back. And then he's had all these other things. That's just meant he's always out for some reason. So let's just give him a bit more time. I think let's see how he does between now and the end of the season. And I'm confident we will see a better Bentancur with a bit more time.
Yeah, do you think with this contract talks, do you think it's going to be like a long contract, like another 3-year deal, or do you think they'll just try and extend it by another year or something?
I would say, probably 3 years, I would say.
Reckon? Yeah. I got a feeling they're just going to try and extend it for another year, because then, one more year left in his deal in the summer. And then in the summer, and then if he doesn't do well next season, then they'll get a little bit of money for him with 1 year left.
I think it'll be a 3-year deal.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But last but not least, the Bleacher Report are reporting that Dean Huijsen's camp are pushing his potential availability this summer and have touched base with more than a dozen clubs around Europe. The Defenders people have already spoken to Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Villa, and Newcastle, amongst others, with his release clause of over 49 million ahead of the summer transfer window. It's reported that Real Madrid are also, fans of Dean Huijsen going into the summer window. And he's a player that I've spoken about before. I said in the summer I'd love to see him through the doors of the club. We obviously didn't go that way. He's gone to Bournemouth and he's been a revelation there. He's had such a fantastic season. But I think he's probably a bit out of our range now.
If I was him, I'd stay at Bournemouth for another year or two, just to get that consistent game time at a good club who's doing really well at the moment. Unless, obviously, if Iraola gets pinched in the summer, maybe if I was him, I'd think, okay, maybe I should move. But I think if Iraola's still there, I would stay there because he's developing so well. He's still so young. And I think he's really having a brilliant time there. And I think going to a bigger club like, I don't know who the clubs you mentioned, but like coming to us or going to like Liverpool or something, is he going to get the same amount of game time? Is he going to develop at the same rate? Whereas in a couple of years' time, I think he could be even more sought after, and I think he could be in a better situation. But
I don't think he'll get consistent game time at the likes of like Chelsea and Newcastle.
Newcastle potentially.
Definitely at Chelsea.
Chelsea.
He'd go in there and be their best centre back right now.
Right now, but is that enough for them? You know what I mean? I think they're going to invest even more heavily in their centre backs. I don't think they're going to stop Huijsen. I think Huijsen should stay at Bournemouth if I was him, and I think it suits him. He's comfortable there. I wouldn't be in a rush to leave unless there's certain circumstances surrounding it. But I wouldn't push for a move if I was him personally. But I'm not him. I'm sure the agent wants the money and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure he wants to go to a bigger club as well. But I think he's just developing so well. I would stay there. But if we could get him, I mean, I'll take that. I find it hard to believe we're gonna get him in the summer.
Yeah, there's no chance he comes to Spurs. Unfortunately, I think we missed the boat out. We should have got him in the summer. We really should have, because Jose Mourinho did say when he was manager of Roma, this guy is going to be one of the best centre backs in world football, and Jose rarely misses. But that is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all those news stories. We've got a super chat here from Dalton Harris. It says, Archie Gray will be our 6 when everyone's fit. Do you see that?
Maybe in the future. I think everyone keeps saying Gray, is a 6 and all this kind of stuff. But when he was at Leeds, he wasn't a 6. When he was playing in midfield, he was more of a box to box. And then I'm not saying he's not.
That's the way he sees himself, as like an 8.
That's what exactly he said that as well. So I'm not saying he doesn't have the qualities to be a 6 or anything like that. I think he has really good composure, and I think he's got really good timing of his tackles and stuff like that. He's a very clever player, so I'm sure potentially he can be. But I think people trying to rush him into that position, I think have been misreading his career so far. That's not been his position, really. He's either been a fullback.
Career, but like in terms of the attributes that he has, do you not think he can be a 6?
I think potentially he can be, but I think asking him to be the answer right now in that position, I think might be a bit much. I don't like it's a big responsibility. Like, does he have the temperament at this age to do what we're asking him? We know in this system how good of a player you need to be in that position.
Yeah.
And at that age, is he ready to have that kind of responsibility on his shoulders? I know he's been at centre back and he's done well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticising him, but if we're being honest, he has struggled in that position as well. As much as he's done well in the situation, but in terms of like being a Premier League ready centre back, he kind of, if we had him for a whole season and he was our first choice there, people would want rid of him. Let's be honest. We wouldn't want him in that position. And I like Gray. I think he's brilliant, but is he ready to be our starting 6 right now? I think we need a more experienced player with who's kind of more ready for it, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree, to be honest. All right, well, Tottenham, Man City, under the lights tomorrow night. Let's get into our predicted lineup. Just before we do, though, a big up to our sponsors, Stocks FC. We've been enjoying their platform very much recently. It's the footballer trading platform. It's your chance to get your stocks in your favourite players, and we've most definitely have been doing that. If you use our link, QR code on screen and link in the description below, you get 5 free loan players when you sign up, which means you get to keep all the profits those players make at the end of the loan duration. But let's go and see how we're doing on Stocks FC at this moment in time. We've got our stocks in Jed Spence.
Yeah, Spence on the up, 2% increase, and same with Mamouche, who had the IPO the other day as well. He's on a 1.2% increase. Richarlison still leading the way at 60%. Mateta consistently high. Romero been seen back on the grass. He's on a 20% increase. But a few players on the decline, unfortunately. Watkins down 38%, Vicario down 26%. I think the Son and Solanke ones as well, but I'm confident those can turn once, especially Solanke comes back from injury.
Yeah, and we told you as well that Stocks FC were doing a surprise IPO launch on Sunday, and that is now ready to purchase, and that player is Martin Odegaard, $2.30 per stock. Only 860 has been taken out of the 25,000.
After that disaster class against West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. So, look, make of that what you will. I'm not here to make any decisions for you, but that is the surprise Stocks FC IPO that went live on Sunday. But be in it to win it, guys. Like I said, we've been enjoying this platform so much. And if you want to join, link in the description below, QR code on screen. But let's get into this predicted lineup, and let's start off talking about the injury news going into it. And the graphic is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as each week progresses.
Yeah, we've still got 4 centre-backs out, though. So it's not exactly perfect, but he said Romero, Van de Ven, Solanke in line to potentially be back for the first against RZ in 7 to 10 days' time, as well, with the Bournemouth game coming up after that. So they're going to be put on hold, I think, until that game, unavailable for tomorrow's game against Man City. Ben Davis, Ange claims, has been playing with a niggle for a few games and wanted to give him a rest. Was hoping to have him back for this game, but said he's going to give him the week break before the RZ game to get ready, so he's going to be unavailable. Dragoshin's obviously out for the season with the ACL and Richarlison. Hopefully not too far behind Mickey, Akuti and Solanke with his return. So hopefully after the RZ game, you know, that will be we're hoping, fingers crossed, it will be just Dragoshin really left.
Yeah.
But can't count your chickens with Tottenham around. You never know.
Yeah, so let's get into it. 4-3-3 as per usual. In goal is obviously going to be Vicario, and he's had such a important return since his injury. Was vital to us in the early stages of that Ipswich game, and in the game prior to that as well. Just made against Manchester United, made so many top saves, didn't he?
For sure, and he's been great having back. I know the keepers, Austin and Kinski have done well in his absence, but you just see the difference in quality. There was a reason why we were calling him one of the best shot stoppers in the league, and I think we kind of underrated how much we would miss him when Kinski came in, and he's just been absolutely phenomenal in the last couple of games. No surprise that the goals against have gone down as well, and his handling's been brilliant. And the last time he played Man City, we won 4-0 and he kept a clean sheet. Now it's probably his best performance in the Tottenham show. He was absolutely phenomenal, and he played that game with a broken ankle, which is mad to think about. So hopefully a similar performance without the ankle this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving into the defence and right back, I do think Pedro Porro is going to come straight back in. Obviously, he was on the bench given a rest against Ipswich. You've got Jed Spence there as well, who played right back, but I think it will be Porro.
I think so. I think he got a rest on the weekend with a view of coming back into the game against Man City. I think he's a very important player for this kind of game, because I think his passing range and his quality is going to be vital for those maybe passes in behind when we're on a breakaway and being very direct. However, you could say, with the likes of potentially Doku and Savinho on the wings, would we be better served playing the likes of Jed and Doggy just to make sure we're not getting roasted in those wide areas, whereas Porro, we know, can have his days where he's not up to it against those level of wingers. So I think there is a chance we see Jed and Udogie keep their place just because of that fact. But the fact that maybe with Porro rest, I think when he's well rested, he's much better in those actions than when he's tired. So hopefully the rest, he'll be all right, even defensively.
Yeah, and as well, I think they just want to ease Udogie back into it. Had a good hour against Ipswich, performed really well, particularly in that first half. And I think, they're just going to ease him back into it. Like, if Udogie was fit for, the last month or so, I think it would be more of a question. But because he's been out for quite a while, I think they're just going to err on the side of caution with him a little bit.
But is there a case for Porro and Udogie with the amount of minutes Spence has been playing recently?
Yeah, definitely. There is a case for it. I just feel it will be Spence, and maybe in a week's time you're going to see maybe Porro and Udogie back on the field. But if Spence is going to be left out of any match day squad at the moment, it's going to be kind of harsh on him. But I do think with the amount of football that he has played, we do need to start managing his minutes a bit.
Yeah, agreed. But so we're going to put Spence on the left here.
Yeah, Spence on the left.
Who's just playing too well. He's, you know, you can't leave him out. Not man of the match on the weekend, but still an unbelievable. Got his first goal anyway, and he's been the topic of conversation a lot over the last.
He did get man of the match, didn't he?
Did he get man of the match against Ipswich?
Maybe not.
He did against United and against Brentford.
Who did get man of the match against Ipswich?
Brennan maybe or Son? I can't remember. I don't know. But you just can't leave him out. He's playing too well, and I think. Against you know, the likes of probably Savini on that side, we're going to need, I think, Spence and the form he's in to keep him out. That's also one thing that's just going so under the radar. Like, we're praising for his dribbling and his ability on the ball, but defensively he's just been brilliant as well. It's so hard to get past his physicality. He's got unbelievable physical traits. So yeah, I think he's going to be very important in this game.
Yeah, mate, he's had Mo Salah in his back pocket twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though one of them we conceded 6 goals. But
and he got 2 of
them. In centre-backs, I think it pretty much picks itself with Danso and Archie Gray, seeing as Ben Davies is out, Dragoshin is out, Van der Ven's out, and Romero is probably, it comes a bit too soon for Romero. Yeah,
that is what kind of Postecoglou's saying. I guess the question is, do we keep Danso on the left and play Gray on the right again, or is he going to switch it back? I think
he'll play Danso on the left.
Yeah, I think he will play Danso on the left again. I think it was fine for the most part. I think Gray had his struggles early on, but adjusted. Danso, I think as well, he kind of positionally looked a bit out of sorts at the beginning, but then once he got used to playing on that left-hand side, you saw him getting confident and started dribbling out of situations. And we're going to need him to be brave. Do you reckon they'll rather be playing Haaland or Mamouche on tomorrow?
I think they want to play both.
They want to play both.
Oh, you're talking about our players, do they?
Yeah.
Rather, I mean, I think all being well for City, they would want to play both, because I think they had such a great kind of you know, when they played together in that game against Newcastle, they just looked like Haaland just took all the players away from Mamouche and blah blah blah. But I think if they only had to play one, I think they'd probably say, I don't want to play Haaland. Yeah, don't, because he's just so big and strong. Well, Mamouche is in the better form, you could argue, with that hat-trick he scored against Newcastle. But either way, it's going to be so difficult for them. We know that Man City like to get their strikers involved. So I think that's one thing I'm worried about. As much as Gray's done well, like in this kind of game, is he going to struggle against that City front line? Let's hope he's up to it. That's one thing I'm kind of a bit worried about. Yeah, I'm worried about the dual threat of Haaland and Mamouche. I think if it is one of them, then it's much easier to handle than when it's both of them, because you know where to like focus your kind of attentions on. But when it's both of them, you're getting dragged left, right, and all sorts. So it'll be a really hard day at the office if both of them are playing. But
I just hope they don't target Gray. That's what I'm worried about.
So you can have that physical mismatch of Haaland against Gray. Let's move into the midfield, starting off with the 6. Are we thinking Bentancur?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because obviously we always call for, do we need rotation and things like that, but Bentancur's been the one obviously playing most games recently. But with this game coming so short of, a few days after the Ipswich game, is there a chance Bissouma comes into this game with a view of Bentancur coming back in for RZ potentially? Or do we think he's just going to go Bentancur again because he trusts him more?
I feel like he does trust Bentancur a lot more. Bissouma's been on the bench for the past 3 games, but he did start in the 2 games prior to that. So I feel like it will be Bentancur, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Bissouma. I'd prefer to see Bentancur. I just don't really trust Bissouma in these big games.
Yeah, I think he makes too many mistakes. Who started when we beat them 4-0? Was it Bentancur or Bissouma?
When we beat Man City 4-0, let's have a look. Bissouma started that game with Sarr.
Bissouma, Sarr and Maddison in the middle, and then Decky on the right.
Yeah.
Could he go a similar team to that? Or was he...
Could do. Sarr and Bissouma were both on the bench against Ipswich.
Because would he want to just potentially wants to freshen things up? But
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use it against him if he wanted to freshen it up. I could see the thinking behind it. I just feel that he will start Bentancur. But look, I wouldn't be surprised if Bissouma starts. I'm not sure.
Because I think clearly Bentancur is the more trusted player, but as well, I don't think it's like Bissouma's never going to play again. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's going to start games, but is he going to be on this occasion?
Like against Aston Villa, he started Bentancur, and then he brought in Bissouma for him at half time. Like, they are still seeing, Bissouma's still seeing like good minutes.
Yeah. But then at Anfield it was Bissouma and Bentancur, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was both of them. So, all right. So we're going to go with Bentancur then in the middle. I think Maddison was on the bench. I think he definitely plays in the 10.
Yeah, 100%.
I think he definitely starts, considering as well he got a brace at Etihad. We know he can play at Man City and played brilliantly when he came on against Ipswich as well. So he plays. So I guess the big question, does he put Sarr in or does he keep with Bergvall in the 8?
My personal preference would be Bergvall, just because he's playing at such a high level at the moment, and Sarr isn't really playing well. Hasn't done for a while now, to be honest. Pape Matar Sarr. I got a feeling he might just go for Sarr and Bentancur in a double pivot with Maddison as a 10, just because of Sarr's elite kind of energy levels getting around the pitch, and he hasn't had too much game time over the past couple of weeks. But I really hope he goes for Bergvall.
Yeah, I want to see Bergvall. I want to see him at this kind of level of game as well. But I also got a feeling he's going to go for Sarr because he also scored that goal against City in the Cup as well. He has good form against City. Started that with the 4-0 win. He hasn't played too much recently. But then again, apparently that's because of a knock. So is he ready to start the game? I guess we don't even know. But he was on the bench. I saw him in training, just watching the training video. I think either way, I think whoever starts probably only gets an hour with the other one coming on. So should we go with Bergvall then? Because I want to see Bergvall.
Are we going to go with Sarr? Or are we going with what we think Ange will do? This is a predicted lineup of what we think Ange will do.
So let's go. What do we? All right, so let's go with Sarr then.
Thing is, like, Bergvall will be very disappointing on his part to miss out, because he's done nothing wrong to not be in this team. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where Pape actually just hasn't performed well in a while. And Bergvall, the last time he played against this kind of opposition at the Spurs Stadium was that game against Liverpool, and he absolutely smashed it that day.
Yeah, I personally would want to see Bergvall, but he's also played a lot recently.
Right, let's go for Bergvall.
Although he came off on the hour, didn't he? Against Ipswich?
Against Ipswich, he came off...
Was it 78 or was it 60? Or did he not come off at all?
No, he played 90.
Oh, he played 90. Okay, yeah. So I think on that basis, maybe it will be Sarr.
No, he did come off.
Yeah, I thought he came off, didn't he?
Yeah. I'm trying to think when he came off. He came off... he came off on 85th minute.
Oh, okay, only 5 minutes. So on that basis, seeing as he played pretty much 90, maybe it will be Sarr.
All right, let's go for Sarr then. I mean, yeah, it could be either. And I prefer to see Bergvall, but I wouldn't mind.
I think they're both going to play.
I
think they're both going to play like a part in this game. Front three.
Yeah, on the right hand side, obviously the obvious choice is Kulusevski. Obviously Johnson started and scored 2 goals. Again, my personal preference would be to persist with Brennan Johnson, just because I don't think Kulusevski is at those physical levels. I do believe he's going to go for Kulusevski because he just never seems to give Decky a rest. But I think he should go with Johnson.
I think he's going to go with Decky as well. I think Decky obviously loves playing against Man City as well. I thought he was brilliant when we last played them. We do have a bit of a break after this, so I think Decky will be relishing to play this game. I really do. So I think he won't be able to leave Decky out. I just think he's going to put him in again.
I just think it's a bit of a silly decision to play Decky. I know he usually relishes the Man City games, but usually he's not running on empty when we come up against Man City. And we say, he usually goes up 10 levels when we play Man City, but this is a different Kulusevski, man. He's just not physically at the races at the moment.
He scored last game. You saw that relief that he had in him when he scored, so maybe that goal will give him that little bit of a boost. I don't know. We'll see. I think he's going to play him, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing, like, if you're suffering from form, but there's another thing if you're just not physically at those levels, and I just think that's the case with Decky.
I think that's fair as well, but I think he will play him.
I do agree, to be honest. On the left-hand side, it will be Sonny, who had a really good first 45 minutes against Ipswich. Again, he's another player that's just played so much football, and he could probably as well do with the rest. But when you're looking at the options, you've got Odebear there, who's been back for a number of weeks now.
Only got Mikey Moore, yeah.
Mikey Moore, but Odebear is the one that looks really exciting when coming on both games, but he has had limited minutes.
Also got Werner back as well, but who scored in the cup game against City, but I don't think he'll play him. I think obviously Son was brilliant in the first half against Ipswich. I think I think in these kind of games, obviously we know how City play, and Son is usually quite effective in these kind of games. I think if Odegaard had come back a few weeks before, we might have seen Odegaard. But because he got 5 minutes at United, 20 minutes against Ipswich, I think we're just gonna keep building that. So maybe we'll see him a bit more.
Give
like
him half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour on this one. I just don't think he's going to start just yet. So I think Sonny will start with maybe Odegaard getting half an hour.
And then moving in to the number 9, obviously Matisse Tell is the obvious option. Dane Scarlett came on and did well against Ipswich. Obviously grabbed that assist with the header. But I think it will be Matisse Tell. And Matisse Tell needs to have a much better performance than what he showed at Portman Road. I mean, he was our worst player by far. And I do think this is the game where he can come alive a bit more space for him to operate in. And I'm backing him to get a goal actually in this game.
Yeah, it should suit him a bit more space to run in behind. I think a bit more space to operate in the central area. I think maybe he just lacked that physicality when there was squeezed space to really get away from those Ipswich centre-backs. But the way he competed with them was pretty disappointing. But I think we're going to want to give him that time to bed in. We've obviously signed him and he's come here to play. Doesn't mean he can just stink the place out every week and keep playing. I think he's going to have to show some quality, but I think he has done in other games. And just because he has a bad game against Ipswich doesn't mean he comes immediately out of the team. I think he'll continue to start. But I think if he plays similar way, I think Scarlett's there ready and waiting to come on. So I can see Scarlett coming on in this game if Tell has a similar performance.
A few people are talking about this in the comment section, which makes me think that it could be an actual option about maybe playing Decky at false 9 and Brennan on the right.
That could be possible. I wouldn't mind that as well. We've seen Decky there, even as well. We've also seen against Man City Son play up front, and he's done quite well because in these kind of games, this is more of a Son up front kind of game than maybe others. So maybe that's also something we might do.
Can you really leave Johnson out after scoring 2 goals as well last game?
The only reason I say you probably could is because he's just coming back from injury, and he played an hour because they only wanted to give him an hour on the weekend. And because this game is a quick turnover, you could justify saying to Johnson, look, you were brilliant on the weekend, but we just want to manage you. So you'll be on the bench, but we'll give you, you'll come off and I'll come off the bench with half an hour to go and just build your match fitness up. You could justify it with a view of maybe him starting the RZ game.
But do we need to justify? I mean, he came on. He came on the previous game against Manchester United towards the end. Started the game and got an hour against Ipswich. So I mean, he should be able to play this game.
Yeah, I think he will play. I just don't know if he'll play from the start.
Maybe because it's 2 games in the space of a
That's
week.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
Probably start out.
The only thing is, I'm looking at front 3, and I know this front 3 has done well against City previously with the space City leave, but Not Tell, but I know Son and Decky have. But I feel like if we had Johnson and Odegaard there, especially if they were in full fitness, I think City would struggle even more against those two. I feel in their current situation because I'm looking at how they play. They just leave so much space out wide. I kind of would love that space to be exploited by 2 absolute speedsters. But I think that front 3 has enough about them to cause them trouble.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if it was up to me, the front 3 I would probably play is... the front 3 I'd like to see play is Brennan Johnson on the right, Odegaard on the left, and Tell up top. I think I'd like to see that front 3.
Oh, well, I think that's what I'd like to see as well. But I just feel like just because they're not... I don't know if they're fully ready to start yet. I mean, obviously, Brennan did start. I don't know if Odegaard's fully ready to start. I just got a feeling he'll probably go with that. But maybe we will see Decky given a rest, or maybe we'll see Decky in the middle. Who knows?
Anyway, what options to have off the bench as well? Like whoever starts, if Johnson starts, if Decky starts. Imagine Johnson starting, and then they see Decky warming up with half an hour, 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. Fantastic.
But that is our predicted lineup. We're going for Vicario in goal, Porro right back, Spence left back, Danso and Gray in the middle, 2 at the back, Sarr and Bentancur as the double pivot with Maddison in the 10, Decky on the right, Sonny on the left, and Matisse Tell up top. So that is your predicted lineup. And do remember to get yourselves involved in Stocks FC. Link in the description below. QR code on screen. 5 free loan players when you use our link. But let's move on, guys. Let's move on. And let's just get this off the screen for you guys. And we'll get into the match preview. A team that we've got quite a bit of success with against in the last couple of years. You know, beating them already twice this season with 2 really good performances. 4-0 at the Etihad, 2-1 in the Cup in October against, which was 2 really good displays. You know, we just seem to play really well whenever we come up against them.
And on both those occasions as well, we saw a bit of a different side to Spurs, in a sense that in both those games, it wasn't just we dominated possession and we were just gung-ho. Like, we very much defended properly in both those games. Yeah. We sat back a bit. We made sure we got players behind the ball plugging the gaps, and Man City found it really hard to break through. I think obviously the game of the Etihad, they probably had a few more chances than the game in the Carabao, especially early on. I remember they opened us up a bit, and Haaland missed a couple of chances. But I think the game in the Carabao, we did nullify them quite well. And that was obviously they didn't have their first choice attack out there, but we just still nullified them quite well, and that was quite an impressive defensive display. I think in both those games, I think it was Dragoshin and Davis, I think, because I think the game in the Carabao, Romero got injured early, Van de Ven got injured early in that game, so it ended up being Davis and Dragoshin for a lot of it. In the game in the Etihad, it was Davis and Dragoshin at the back. So, I mean, this one's going to be another new pairing. It's going to be Danso and Gray.
In the 2-0... Oh, no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong game. Go on.
Yeah, I'm saying this game is going to be another new pairing, Danso and Gray. Yeah. So they're going to have to be very much on it. Against Man City...
Danso will be vitally important, though, in this game. I think he's going to be such a pivotal player for us.
100%. I think his ability to just clear things away when crosses are coming in the box. Against Man City, whatever you want to say about them, you always have to be on point defensively, even in this run of games, because they just have that capability of opening you up and causing you problems. And I think all the games that they've lost, they've always come up against teams who are very good, are very disciplined, and very good and quite good defensively. And that has been their undoing. And we know that right now they're in a period where if you are very solid against them, you can catch them out. They're not in the same phase defensively. I think Gonzalez has helped, but he hasn't completely solved the problem just yet. And at the back, I think their defenders, they're struggling. Stones has gone off injured. Akanji's out injured as well at the moment. Rico Lewis maybe isn't in the same form he was maybe in our previous seasons. Gavardio defensively isn't at the same level at the moment, and they're being exposed a bit more because I feel like the midfield isn't as energetic without Rodri and as disciplined. I think, again, I've said Gonzalez has helped in that, and it will make it harder than it would have been without him. But still, they're not the same level they were when obviously Rodri was there. So I think a lot of it is overpowering them at midfield, making sure you're overrunning them and making sure that you're making it difficult for them to basically play through the middle. Because if we can stop them getting it as out wide as directly as they have been, then I think there will be chances for us to directly attack them, and we can be quite a devastating team when we go direct. So that's what I think the plan will be. But if we allow them too much domination in the middle, if they can kind of get back to those levels we've seen, even though they obviously beat Newcastle 4-0, so they're still capable of big performances and big results. If we allow Gonzalez to dominate in that midfield, then all of a sudden you might see Savinho and Doku getting a lot more opportunities, and I think that could cause us a lot more problems.
Yeah, and that 4-0 game against Newcastle was actually Nico Gonzalez's only start in the Premier League. So I think it's a good barometer to go on, because in that game they looked brilliant.
Did he not start at Anfield?
Anfield, no. Sorry.
Not Anfield, against at home, sorry. At home.
Liverpool. Yeah, no, he did. No, you're right. So he's had 2 starts in the Premier League, once against Newcastle, once against Liverpool. But I feel like that Newcastle game's probably a bigger barometer than the Liverpool game, just because Liverpool are the best team in Europe, the best team in the Premier League. The game before that was away at Real Madrid, and you can get sucked in against Real Madrid with Rodri on the pitch, never mind with Nico Gonzalez on the pitch. So I'm looking at that Newcastle game, and I am worried coming into this game, because against Liverpool and against Real Madrid, you're talking about 2 of the best teams in Europe. They're coming up against a Tottenham side who are mid-table right now.
Yeah.
They played against a Newcastle side who have been better than Tottenham all season, and they absolutely smashed them off the park. So I am fairly worried coming into this game, and I feel like the Man City will look at this game as a game for them to get back on form.
Definitely, and I actually didn't think they were that bad in certain moments against Liverpool. I just think Liverpool really exploited their biggest weaknesses and made sure they defended properly. But I thought there were points where Man City were doing some good things there, but Liverpool were just too good for them on the day.
The thing as well that they had in the Newcastle game, which I don't think they're going to have here, I don't know if Haaland's going to make it. But if he does, that kind of dual threat of Haaland and Mamouche is a scary thought to come up against, particularly when you don't have your first choice backline. And if it is one of them, I don't think it will be as a scary prospect because you know where to focus your attentions. But in that game, when Newcastle played Man City, Haaland kept drifting off. He kept like dragging the Newcastle defence with him, which left all sorts of space for Mamouche, and he ended up getting a hat-trick in the first half.
But look at that, they've lost 3 of their last 5 away games, Man City. Obviously 2 of them against Liverpool and Real Madrid. But not in the best away form. But then again, we're not in the best. Well, we've won 3 of our last 5 home games, so maybe our home form is starting to turn a bit, but still not amazing just yet. Defensively, we're in a little bit of better form than them. 7 goals in the last 5 compared to 9, so they've shipped quite a few. But offensively,
they conceded 5 to Arsenal, didn't they?
5-1 to Arsenal, yeah. Well, we conceded 4 to Liverpool, which obviously probably I think it's in that stat. So I think in terms of form, we're fairly evenly matched in terms of form, but obviously quality-wise, they're still ahead of us. But I think dropping out the Champions League, I wonder what kind of psychological effect that's going to have on them, because over the last 4 years, when they're in this kind of moment, that mentality to just keep winning games, to keep ahead of the opposition in the title race, was such a key factor, I think, to how they just kept going on these runs. But now it's a different kettle of fish.
Implode.
I'm not saying going to implode. I'm just saying I wonder. I do wonder what kind of hit that's going to take to them psychologically, because I think there have been in the past few years. I think it's been, as much as anything, it's been mentality that's got them through it. Just dragging themselves to these wins, making sure that they're getting over the line in every game. But I think, especially there's like the older guys like Diaz and Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, a lot of these guys who are obviously getting on a bit, and they've been eking every ounce of themselves to drag themselves to titles. But are they going to be able to do that just to drag themselves to a top 4? And that's kind of what I wonder about this team right now. I think they're definitely in a massive dogfight for top 4. I really think that. I think they've done really well to reinforce the squad in January, and that's really going to help them in this fight. And that probably will be enough to make sure they get there. But I also think that I don't think they've got out of their problems just yet. That's what I feel, and I feel they're still going to have a few problems between now and the end of the season where they have some bad defeats, and I still think they're going to be in a real fight for top 4. I don't think they're going to breeze it. I think it's going to be a close call. I think there will be some weeks they drop out of it. I think by the end of it, they'll probably be in it, but I think I don't think they're going to be like back to the City that's winning every game, is my point.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like the tide was turning, wasn't it, after that Newcastle game? Everyone was like, oh, Man City look like they're back to their best. Nico Gonzalez, Pep was calling him the new Rodri and stuff after
Mini
the game.
Rodri.
Mini Rodri and all that kind of stuff. And it felt like the tide was turning. But I guess, like, for them, it was just unfortunate they had to come up against, like, the 2 best teams in Europe.
I think the tide has turned in a sense that before January, they were losing an obscene amount of games. And that is, that they can't be in that situation anymore. And I don't think they will be. And so I do think from that point of view, the tide has definitely turned because they're starting to win games again and they're starting to look a lot more like themselves. But I still think they're not quite there yet, is my point. And I think it's going to be interesting how they do from now to the end of the season. But I think they should be okay. They should be in the top 5 at least, which is Champions League. But being out of the Champions League as well, being out of the title race, they're not used to not fighting for those big things. So it's a different kind of mentality they're going to need from now to the end of the season, I feel.
Yeah, and I think they'll still have it in abundance. I think they'll be on good form from now to the end of the season, in my opinion. But the reality is, is that Man City don't win at Tottenham unless we say they can win.
Exactly, unless we allow them to win, and that's a big thing. And even last year, we allowed them to win because we were playing well. We're like, you know what? We showed we can beat you, but here's the win. that's what it was like last year.
Exactly. Sonny going through 1-on-1 with Ortega in the final minutes of what was it? 10 minutes to go or something.
Yeah.
And Sonny was like, "Nah, we're not giving Arsenal the title.
No chance. But we want to win this one, and it's a weird one. If we win, I think there's in terms of like catching up to the pack in front of us. This could be a big win if we win this, because obviously we would naturally close points on City, and also Bournemouth are playing Brighton, who both teams are above us. Villa away at Palace, not an easy game. Chelsea are probably going to win, but Newcastle away at Liverpool as well. So if we win, I think the table could look quite interesting if we do win this game.
If we win, we go 8 points behind City or something?
8 points behind City, yeah. But I'm saying there could also be 8 points behind Newcastle as well, because they might lose to Liverpool. Bournemouth play Brighton, so we can close points on both of them.
Saying if we win, the march for Europe is on.
I'm just saying if we do want to march for it, we'll probably have to win. Is my point.
Yeah, we have to go on a consistent run though.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm saying, but it starts with winning this game. I'm saying one game at a time. I'm saying if we want any chance of getting European football, it would have to start here. I mean, it would have started 3 games ago with those wins, but we have to just keep winning, and we have to prove our credentials by winning this game for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's done if we're back in it if we win, but I'm saying the only way we get back in it is to win this game.
Yeah, and I think you'll learn a lot about Ange Postecoglou. I think you'll learn a lot about this Tottenham side over the next 4 or 5 games, because there's very difficult games coming up. Man City, Bournemouth, Fulham, Chelsea, all 4 games where on any given day you can have a slip up. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So I think we'll learn a lot over the next 4 games. And of course, we have to start somewhere, and we start against Man City that have back-to-back losses in the Premier League and Champions League with Liverpool and Man City. So it's going to be an incredibly difficult test, but I do think that we might have enough about us to get through this game. Yeah,
we should have enough players back and players off the bench to keep up that intensity, I hope. And also, I think hopefully we've learned some things from the way we played against City in the last couple of games, and use that as a bit of a blueprint to make sure that we're not getting opened up so much and we can really exploit them, because we've shown that when we play against Man City, they're a team who want to go toe-to-toe with us, and we can go toe-to-toe with them if they want, and we can exploit them as much as they come and try and beat us. And I think we just have to make sure we're defending right, making sure we're clogging up the spaces, making sure we're getting players behind the ball and not making it easy for Man City to create chances. If we do that, there's going to be chances for us, especially at home with the crowd on our side. I think, cheering us on, I think that can be a big help. If we look at the lineup, I think we think they might play. If you bring that on, Sammy, I think you look at that team, it's still a very good team. Still lots of quality there. They do have a few injury problems, but if Haaland doesn't play, Foden's not in the best form. The one thing I am worried about, though, is those wingers. I know they're not like the most effective wingers, but they're still, on their day, they can really take any fullback to the cleaners the way they play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, particularly with the way our fullbacks play as well, we always leave gaps in, behind our right back with him inverting into the central areas of the pitch. So I feel like if we're going to get a result in this game, we need to have a really rigid back 4, 2 players sitting in front and just counter the shit out of them, basically.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to play Rico or Kuzanov at right back.
Kuzanov is an interesting one, actually, because he struggled massively in his opening 20 minutes, half an hour of his debut. But I think since then he's really settled into the side.
He's gotten better. I still think he's had some struggles adjusting to where the positioning he needs to be in and things like that. I still think it's caught out, but I think he's looked a lot better than that shaky first 20 minutes he had against. I can't remember who was against. Chelsea, where he was absolutely terrible in those first 3 minutes. It looks like he was going to be an absolute flop, but
in the first
recovered.
5 minutes of his debut, he gave away a goal pretty much and got booking and made like a couple of fouls.
And also was sloppy passes, nearly costing them more goals. So I think, but he is very quick. So if they play him right back up against Son, will Son fancy his chances there? Potentially, I think he'd much rather probably play Rico Lewis than play Kuzanov, but that's going to be interesting to see how that back line as well operates and how because they haven't been quite as coordinated this season, the back line, as they have been in previous years. I think it's probably more because they've been more exposed than in previous years, more than anything. But I think in the game in the Etihad when we played them, and the game in the Carabao, I think they had good back lines in those games.
Know what? You talk about Doku and Savinho, exploiting us on the wings. But who else can exploit us is Gvardiol, because Gvardiol gets forward so much. He exploits space so much in that area of the pitch. And that's the area of the pitch where, a lot of teams exploit us. So I'm actually very worried about Gvardiol getting in goal scoring positions.
Well, if Decky starts, he's going to have to do his job. And he usually does when he faces Gvardiol. And actually, at the Etihad, he bullied Gvardiol, didn't he? A couple of times, which was great. But for sure, Gvardiol gets in all sorts of positions, and he's a massive, massive threat.
And Omar Mamouche, right, since coming in, I've really liked the look of him. I think he's a top player in the making. He's always on his bike, isn't he? Always looking to make that run. He's always on the move. Got a hat-trick against Newcastle with some brilliant finishing on show. I feel like if we play like a super high line, he's going to they're always going to be looking for him. They're going to find him time and time again.
Yeah, he's absolutely could be devastating, and I think he's got unbelievable pace. He's obviously joining a new club, and he's got that, like, he's running on adrenaline at the moment, having joined Man City, and he looks really, really bright early on. So I'm definitely worried about him. I mean, look, all those four players are all obviously unbelievable. Foden's obviously a lot better than he was the earlier season. He's still not quite at the best, but he's a lot better than he was. It'll be interesting to see what they go for, because I feel like, do they need a bit more steel in there? If they play that midfield three, do we have the opportunity to kind of overrun them in that middle? If they're playing Silva and Foden potentially, do they want to get a Kovacic in there? I think the midfield three they played at the Etihad when we played them, I remember it was like Gundogan, Bernardo. It was like a really unathletic midfield three, and that was real big away how we won them. We just cut through them in the middle. So I wonder if he's learned from that and he'll play a different kind of midfield three, or is he going to kind of persist with that? It'll be interesting to see.
Well, the midfield three that he played against Newcastle when they won 4-0 was Nico, Gundogan, and kind of Mamouche, but a bit further forward. If Haaland's not playing, obviously they can't do that. Mamouche is going to have to play as the number 9.
But they still got De Bruyne, they got Foden.
Yeah, I think De Bruyne was really poor last game, wasn't he? I feel like he's going to leave De Bruyne on the bench for this one.
I think this could be a good game for De Bruyne, though, in a weird way, if he plays him. But yeah, he really struggled against Liverpool. But Liverpool do have probably the most physical and athletic midfield three in the league, or one of. So it's no surprise that they really struggled. We obviously have an athletic midfield three, but it's not the most, especially when Maddison plays. I mean, what he brings you off on the ball is obviously brilliant, but off the ball sometimes he can be bypassed. But when he's at his peak fitness, he's not a liability. But when he's off it a bit, sometimes he can be. So he's going to have to be at his absolute best as well.
What do you think about Man City, because on general, because at the beginning when their bad form started, everyone's like, oh, it's all down to Rodri. Do you feel like that's still the case? Is this all just down to Rodri, or do you think this Man City team needs a bit of a rebuild?
I definitely do think it needs a rebuild. When you win 4 in a row, and you sometimes, it's mentality and physicality, you just need to be a refresh to go again. And it was always going to hit a buffer at some point. You can't just win every league forever, if without major refreshes. And that's what kind of Sir Alex Ferguson was amazing at, just always just refreshing the squad, selling players when they needed to be sold, and buying new players at the right times. And I feel like at this point, Man City need to do the same. They need to just refresh the squad. I think people like Bernardo Silva, I think Gundogan to an extent probably needs to leave. Potentially De Bruyne, although I think he could still play a bit part role. But in terms of him being the main man, that can no longer be the case.
De Bruyne's contract is up at the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe the end of next season. I think maybe you have another year left. I think some of the defenders, they need to...
No, it's this season.
It's this season. Stones, I think, might need to be sold or not relied upon. Maybe Ake's, getting on 30 at the moment. So Diaz as well. I do think they just need younger, fresher players to come into this team and reinvigorate them. And maybe hungry. Maybe they lost a bit of hunger. I think that's the case. When you've won all what they've won, it's hard to keep that hunger. It's like you've won everything. How much more hungry can you get? Like when you've been so consistent with your winning.
I thought that was going to be the case potentially after the treble, but they still came back and won another title.
Yeah, they did. They dragged themselves to another title, but I think that's because they kept themselves in the race. But this year they've just dropped out of it. I think at the beginning of the season they were looking brilliant though. I remember earlier before Rodri got injured, they were looking really good. And then Rodri got injured, and I think maybe he's like the player who maybe, I don't know, keeps the standards up on the pitch, and when he's not there, it kind of, they just let it slip too much on top of the quality they're missing as well. I think it's, again, a myriad of issues. I think maybe some of these players are lacking hunger. I think a lot of them are lacking physicality as well with the ages, and I think they need a refresh. I think there's a few things, but I've got no doubt that first of all, the signings in Jan will help them, and the fact that they'll do what's required in the summer. I think Pepper's admitted, I think in the summer, that he maybe made a bit of a mistake, not refreshing squad a bit more. He thought he could go again for one more season, and maybe it was a season too far. So I think he's admitted that at this point. So I think he won't make the same mistake again in the summer. I don't think this is going to be a thing where they're going to do like an Arsenal or United where they go years and years without a league. I think they're going to be right back in the race next year. But I think this season, obviously it's been a bad season, and they're going to have to learn a few lessons. But they're a smart team, Man City. I think they will learn the lessons, unlike maybe Man United, who just haven't learned the lessons since they last won the league.
Yeah, I feel like with Man City, I agree they need I don't think a rebuild is the right word. Probably a refresh is probably a better word for it, because I don't think they need a whole host of new players. Probably like just 2, 3, 4 players. And
they just need to lower the average age of the squad.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I mean, like 3 or 4 players out, 3 or 4 players in, and then I think that will just completely refresh them. And I do think they'll be, I agree, they'll be back in the title race next season. Maybe even the goalkeeper as well. There's talks about maybe going for the Porto keeper, I think it is.
Diogo Carlos, is it there? Not Carlos, Diogo.
Diogo, though, that's him, yeah.
Carlos Diogo, is that his name?
Carlos Diogo.
That's it, yeah. He's good. He's good, the Porto keeper.
Yeah.
Man City are very good with recruitment usually. They usually get it right, and Pep's usually really good at betting them in.
They rarely miss, do they?
They'll be all right. I'm sure they'll be all right. And even in this season, like, they've been bad, but they're still in the top 4, aren't they? That are currently speaking.
Diogo, that's it.
Costa Diogo. They'll be fine. I'm sure they'll be fine. I don't think this is going to be a long-term issue for them.
Yeah, but let's hope that we can kind of take advantage of the issues that they are going through at the moment. Obviously, we've been going through our own issues as well that are a lot worse than what Man City are going through. But I do think it's a game where we can take advantage of it and we can win the game. It's going to be under the lights at Tottenham. They never like to come here, and we've beaten them already twice this season. And hopefully we can take sample sizes of both those games and take it into this game and show, where Man City can be caught out. So in terms of prediction, I'm going to go for a tight Spurs 2-1 win. And I feel like we will sit a bit deeper in this game, wait for our moments, and counter the shit out of them.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4-2. I'm going to go for lots of goals. I think Tottenham finally have some options in the front line where we can change it and refresh things, and that could help really exploit this City backline, which we know how to exploit over the last few times we played them. But I also think our backline at the moment, as much as Danso and Gray have done well, I still think Man City's a step up from that. And also, we are going to have to be a lot better than we have been over the last couple of games, despite the win. And I know we have won 3 in a row in the league, but performance-wise, it's still going to have to take it up a notch. But I also feel like when Man City come to town, we can really up our game. And I think we know that we've got a few more gears to go than what we've shown. And I think there have been signs that we're starting to click a bit in the last couple of games. We're not quite there, but hopefully in this game it can really start to click. And I'm backing it to do that in the front line. But defensively, I still think we're conceding a few too many chances. I think City will do that, but we'll maybe score. But I'm going 4-2. I'm going for goals, but I'm going for a Tottenham win.
That's probably bad omens, mate.
We've gone for a win. Well, yeah,
I think every time that we've beaten Man City, I think we've both gone for losses.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time we both go for losses in general, we usually win. That's how it works.
Well, I think we both went for losses when we lost to them at the back end of last season. So that was positive.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, that is our match preview. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. It looks as that in this moment in time, me and Sim will be with you on the watch along tomorrow. So come and tune in for that. Was it 7:30 kickoff tomorrow? Or is it 8 o'clock kickoff?
7:30, yes. 1 sec.
Yeah, I think it is 7:30 kickoff.
Yeah, 7:30, yeah.
Come and tune in at 7:15 as we'll run through the team news and everything like that. But look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.